I still remember the exact time because my phone burned it into my brain like a warning. 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet you only get in the suburbs when every porch light is off and the same dogs that bark every morning finally give up for the night. My mom was asleep down the hall, the TV in her room turned low, and I was stretched out on my bed scrolling through my phone with one eye half closed. Then it buzzed. One message. From a number I did not have saved. At first I thought it was spam. Some random link. Some wrong number. I almost ignored it, but something in me made me tap it. And the second the screen lit up, my whole body went cold. It was a selfie. Marissa, my mom's friend. She was standing in front of a mirror, her dark hair loose, her eyes fixed on the camera in a way that was not playful and not accidental. She wore a thin, silky robe that clung to her like it belonged there. The kind of picture you do not send by mistake. The kind of picture you do not send to someone's kid unless you mean something. Under it, one line, just for you. My thumb froze over the screen. My heart did this strange stop and jump, like my chest could not decide if it was scared or excited. I stared at the picture so long my eyes started to hurt, waiting for the moment where it would make sense. It did not. I sat up so fast the sheets slid off my legs. I looked at the door like my mom might walk in and catch me holding a secret in my hand. I looked back at the picture again, and my stomach twisted hard. Marissa had been in our house for a year. She was 36. An interior designer. Always sharp. Always put together. Always showing up with a bottle of wine or homemade cookies like she belonged at our table. My mom loved her. They would sit on the couch for hours talking about neighbors and work, laughing like teenagers, while I stayed in my room with my headphones on, trying not to hear my name. Dylan needs direction, Marissa would say sometimes, her voice carrying through the walls. Find a nice girl, my mom would add, like I was a project she could finish if she just pushed hard enough. I was 25, living in a small house on the edge of a quiet suburb outside Denver. It was just me and my mom. I worked at a garage downtown fixing cars, mostly oil changes and brake jobs. Grease under my nails, motor oil in my clothes, the same routines every day. I had dropped out of community college a couple years back because I never saw the point. No big plans, no dream that pulled me forward, just a life that felt like it was looping. And Marissa always looked at me like she saw something else. It used to make me uneasy. Now it made my skin feel too tight. I typed back with shaking hands. "Did you mean to send this?" The message delivered. The 3 little dots did not appear. Then my phone buzzed again, almost instantly. No mistake. And I don't regret it. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, hoping the words would change. They did not. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling. But the ceiling did not help. My mind kept replaying the image, her eyes, her robe, the line "just for you," like it was carved into my head. I tried to tell myself she was drunk, that she was joking, that someone else had her phone. But the way she looked in that picture was steady, like she had been thinking about it for a long time. I did not sleep. I kept my phone face down on my chest, like it was a ticking bomb. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that mirror. Every time I opened them, I saw my mom's face at dinner, her fork pointing at me like it was loaded. "Settle down, Dylan." And I kept thinking the same thing, over and over, until the sun finally started to glow through my blinds. What happens now? The next morning felt unreal, like I was walking inside someone else's life. My phone was still in my hand when I woke up, the screen dark, but the texts were waiting when I unlocked it. The picture, her words, still there, still real. I shoved the phone into my pocket and went to the kitchen, trying to act normal. My mom was already up, humming some old country song while she poured coffee. She looked calm, safe, like nothing in the world could ever change. "Morning, Dylan," she said. "Marissa's coming over later. She's bringing those lemon bars you like." My stomach flipped so hard I thought I might actually get sick. I forced out a sound that might have been a reply, grabbed a granola bar, and made an excuse about being late for work. I was halfway out the door when my mom called after me, telling me to drive safe. The garage smelled like rubber and oil. The air was loud with tools and engines and guys shouting over each other. Usually that place kept my mind busy. Usually it was the only part of my life that made sense. That day, it did nothing. Every time I wiped my hands on a rag, I saw Marissa's robe. Every time I heard my phone buzz in my pocket, my heart slammed like it wanted to break out. By lunch, I had checked my screen so many times my battery was already dying. Nothing. No new messages. Part of me was relieved. Part of me felt empty. Then, around noon, my mom texted me a picture. Her and Marissa at our kitchen table, lemon bars stacked on a plate between them like a sweet little memory. My mom smiled into the camera. Marissa smiled too. Polished and calm, her hair pulled back, looking like the same woman who always walked into our house like she owned the air. I zoomed in on Marissa without thinking. Her eyes, there was no hint there, no sign of what she had sent me at midnight. She looked normal, like she had not dropped a grenade into my life and walked away. I did not know if that made it worse or better. When I got home around 6, I prayed she would be gone. She was not. She sat on the couch beside my mom with a glass of iced tea in her hand. The room smelled like lemon and sugar. The TV was on low with one of those home renovation shows they both loved, and my mom looked so happy, like having Marissa there filled something in her. "Dylan," my mom said, waving me over. "Come eat something." Marissa's been waiting to say hi. My throat tightened. I looked at Marissa, and for 1 second, our eyes locked. Not a polite glance, not a friendly look. Something heavy. Something that said we are not the same people we were yesterday. "Hey," I managed, my voice rough. Marissa's lips curved into a small smile. "Hey, Dylan, good to see you." I grabbed a lemon bar and retreated to the kitchen like I was escaping a fire. My hands were sweating so bad I almost dropped my phone. I leaned against the counter and tried to breathe, listening to my mom and Marissa laugh in the living room like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I was about to go to my room when my phone buzzed again. A new text. From her. "Meet me at 9 tonight. Park on the edge of town. Let's walk." My pulse kicked so hard it made my vision blur for a second. I stared at the message until the letters looked like they were moving. I did not reply. I did not delete it. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, and I stood there in the kitchen, hearing my mom laugh, smelling lemon bars, feeling my whole life tilt on one message. Because deep down, even with fear crawling up my spine, I already knew the truth. At 9 tonight, I was going to go, and whatever happened next was going to change everything. I told my mom I was meeting a friend from the garage and needed to clear my head. I tried to say it like it was normal, like I did that all the time. She barely looked up from the sink. "Just don't be out too late," she said. And that line hit me hard because she had no idea how late my life was about to get. By 8:45, I was in my truck driving toward the edge of town, my hands tight on the wheel. The streets got emptier the farther I went. Street lights spaced out, houses turning into dark shapes, then open land. My phone sat on the passenger seat like it was alive. When I pulled into the park lot, the place was almost empty. Just a few cars in the distance and a lake that looked black under the night sky. I killed the engine and sat there for a second, breathing fast, wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Then headlights swept across the lot. Marissa's car rolled in and parked a few spaces away from me. She stepped out wearing a simple jacket and jeans, her hair loose and messy in a way I had never seen at my house. No perfect blazer. No polished smile from my mom. Just her, in the dark, looking like a woman who had finally stopped pretending. She walked over slowly like she was giving me space to back out. "You came," she said. "Yeah," I answered, and my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. She nodded once like she was relieved, but she did not smile. Not really. Her eyes stayed on mine, steady and serious, and it made my chest feel tight. We started walking along the path by the lake. Gravel crunched under our shoes. The air smelled like cold water and pine trees. The only light came from the moon and a few distant lamps that barely reached the trail. For the first minute, neither of us talked. It was not awkward, just heavy. Like we both knew we were stepping into something we could not undo. Finally, Marissa spoke. "I should not have sent that picture," she said. Not because I did not mean it, but because it was reckless. My throat felt dry. "Why did you send it?" She slowed down, her hands tucked into her jacket pockets. For a moment, she looked out at the water like it might give her courage. "Because I was tired of feeling invisible," she said quietly. "Tired of pretending my life is fine when it is not, and I do not know why. But last night I just thought of you." That made my heart pound harder. I did not know what to do with those words. I was not used to being someone's reason. I forced myself to ask the question that scared me most. "Why me?" Marissa stopped walking. She turned toward me, her face soft in the moonlight. "Because you do not pretend, Dylan," she said. "You do not try to charm anyone. You do not act like you have everything figured out. You are real. Messy, maybe, but real. And I have been around people who smile through their lives like it is all perfect. You are not like that." I swallowed, my chest hot. "That is not a compliment," I said, trying to joke. But it came out flat. She stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel her warmth through the cold air. "It is the best kind of compliment," she said, "because it is true." I stared at her, and I could not stop my eyes from dropping for a second to her mouth, then back to her eyes. I hated how much I noticed her, how different she felt outside my mom's living room. I took a shaky breath. "You know you are my mom's friend." Her jaw tightened like she had been waiting for that. "I know," she said, "and I hate that I am doing this. But I also hate that I cannot stop thinking about you." My pulse raced so hard it felt like it was shaking my whole body. I wanted to say something smart, something responsible, something that would make sense. Instead, the truth slipped out. "I have been thinking about you, too." Her eyes widened slightly, and for a second, she looked almost vulnerable, like she had not expected me to admit that. "When?" I let out a breath. "I do not know. Maybe when you started coming around and you looked at me like you actually cared what I said. Like I was not just some kid living with his mom." Marissa's expression softened. "You are not a kid," she said. That line hit me hard, because my mom never spoke like that. My mom still talked to me like I was 15, like she could steer my life by pointing her fork at me. Marissa looked at me like I had a choice. We kept walking, slower now. Our shoulders almost brushed, and every time they got close, my skin lit up. The lake sat beside us, quiet and dark, and the whole world felt like it had shrunk to just this path and her voice. "I do not want to hurt your mom," Marissa said after a while. "She is my friend. She has been good to me." "Then why are you doing it?" I asked, and my voice cracked a little because I hated that I needed the answer. Marissa stopped again, turning to face me fully. Her eyes looked glossy like she was holding something back. "Because I am lonely, Dylan," she said. "And I have been lonely for a long time. I got divorced 2 years ago and everyone thinks I am fine because I dress well and I laugh and I show up with cookies. But I go home and it is quiet. Too quiet. And I sit in rooms I design for other people and I wonder, when I started living like a guest in my own life, I did not know what to say. I had never heard her talk like that. At our house, she was always confident, always light, always in control. Here, she sounded human. I found my voice again. That does not explain why me. She stepped closer until there was barely any space between us. My breath caught. "Because when I am around you, I do not feel like I have to perform," she said. "You do not ask me to be perfect. You do not even expect anything from me. You just exist. And somehow, that makes me feel like I can breathe." My heart pounded. My hands clenched and unclenched at my sides. I should have walked away. Instead, I lifted my hands slowly, like I was asking permission without words. and brushed a strand of hair away from her face. My fingers barely touched her cheek. Marissa did not flinch. She closed her eyes for a second like that touch meant more than she wanted it to. When she opened them again, the air between us felt electric. "This is wrong," I whispered. She nodded once. "I know." But neither of us moved back. I could hear the lake, the faint wind in the trees, and my own heartbeat pounding like a drum. Marissa's eyes dropped to my lips, and that was all it took. She leaned in. I met her halfway. The kiss was soft at first, like we were both afraid of what it meant. Then it deepened, slow and steady, and every part of me lit up like I had been asleep my whole life, and she had just woken me. When we finally pulled apart, we stood there, breathing hard, foreheads almost touching. Marissa's voice came out rough. "Dylan." "Yeah," I said, and I did not even know what I meant by it. She looked scared and happy at the same time. "We cannot do this in your mom's house," she said. "We cannot let her see." I nodded because I knew she was right. The guilt hit me fast, sharp in my stomach. "What are we doing then?" I asked. Marissa took my hand, squeezing it like she was holding on to something real. "We are being careful," she said. "We are taking it slow. And we are not pretending it did not happen." The words felt dangerous and comforting at the same time. We walked back to the parking lot. The air felt colder now, or maybe I was just more awake. When we reached her car, she stopped and looked at me again. "I meant what I said," she whispered, "about not regretting it." I stared at her. "Me too." She gave me a small smile then, the kind my mom never saw. It was not polite. It was private. Then she got into her car and drove away, leaving me standing under the weak glow of the parking lot light with my hands still warm from her touch. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. One message from her. "Tomorrow morning. My place. Breakfast." I read it once, then again, my chest tight, my mind racing. Because now it was not just a picture and a kiss. Now it was a choice. And I knew, as I pulled into my driveway and saw my mom's kitchen lights still on, that the hardest part was not meeting Marissa in the dark. The hardest part was going to be lying to the woman who raised me, while I fell deeper into something I could not control. The next morning, I told my mom I had an early shift at the garage. It was a lie, but it came out easy because my throat was still tight from the night before. My mom barely questioned it. She just reminded me to eat something and asked if I wanted her to pack lunch like I was still in high school. I said no and got out fast. Marissa lived on the other side of town in a small apartment that felt nothing like our house. It was clean and calm, with soft light coming through the windows and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. When she opened the door, she looked different than she did around my mom. No sharp blazer, no perfect hair. Just a sweater, bare face and tired eyes that still held that steady look. "You made it," she said. "Yeah," I said, and it sounded like a confession. Her kitchen smelled like coffee and pancakes. She had already set 2 plates on the table like she had been planning this for days. I sat down, still not sure what I was allowed to do, still not sure what this was. For a while, we talked like normal people. About the garage, about traffic, about the weather turning colder. But the space between us felt charged, like every simple word was covering something bigger. Every time her hand moved across the table, I noticed. Every time our eyes met, I felt that pull again. Finally, she set her fork down and looked at me. "I need you to know something," she said. "I am not trying to mess up your life." I swallowed hard. "It already feels messed up." She nodded like she understood. "Mine too. But I do not regret it." That word regret hit me like a weight. I did not know how to answer, so I told her the truth. "I did not sleep," I said. "I kept thinking about what you sent. About you." Marissa's face softened. "I did not sleep either," she admitted. "I kept thinking you would hate me." I stared at her. "I do not hate you." It felt strange to say it out loud, but once I did, something inside me unclenched. Marissa took a slow breath like she had been holding one in all night. We talked for hours after that. Not small talk, but real talk. The kind I usually avoided because it made me feel exposed. She told me about her divorce, how it did not explode in a big dramatic way. It just died quietly. Two people living in the same house, polite and distant, like strangers who shared a last name. She said she kept trying to fix it like she fixed everything else, making plans, changing things, pretending effort could force love to come back. It never did. I told her about dropping out, how everyone acted like it was a failure. And maybe it was, but mostly it felt like relief. Like I had been walking in someone else's shoes and finally kicked them off. I told her how the garage was the only place I felt useful. Fixing brakes, changing oil, getting an engine to start again. Simple problems with clear answers. Life was not like that. Marissa listened, like every word mattered. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She looked at me like I was worth hearing, and that made my chest feel full in a way I did not understand. When I burned one pancake trying to flip it, she laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth. I joked about her fancy coffee maker and she rolled her eyes and called me impossible. For a few minutes it felt easy, like we were just two people eating breakfast. Nothing complicated, nothing wrong. But the truth was sitting there with us. My mom. Her friend. The secret that could break everything. When I left her place, Marissa walked me to the door and stopped me before I stepped out. "We have to be careful," she said. I nodded. "I know." Her eyes searched mine. "This cannot be something sloppy, Dylan. If we do this, we do it right." I did not like how serious it sounded, but I also liked that she meant it. I liked that she was not treating me like a dumb kid playing at something grown. She was treating me like a man who had a choice. So that is what we did. We were careful. Marissa still came to our house sometimes, sitting with my mom like nothing had changed. She brought lemon bars. She laughed at my mom's jokes. She asked me how work was with that same warm voice. But now, when she looked at me, there was something hidden under the surface. A quiet knowing. A secret that made my stomach flip. At night, when my mom went to bed, Marissa would text me. Short messages. Simple words. "Where are you? Are you awake?" Thinking about you. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but enough to keep my heart racing. We met in places where no one would think to look. A diner 2 towns over, where the booths were sticky and the coffee tasted like it had been sitting too long. A trail outside town at dawn, when the air smelled like pine and the world felt empty. Once we drove out to a lookout point beyond the city lights and sat on the hood of her car with a blanket over us, staring at the stars. That night, she leaned her head on my shoulder and asked me what I wanted. I almost laughed because no one ever asked me that like the answer mattered. "I do not know," I admitted. "I have never really aimed for anything." Marissa lifted her head and looked at me like she was seeing through my skin. "You should aim higher," she said. "You have more in you than you think." I stared at the dark hills in the distance and felt something shift, not because of the words alone, but because she believed them. She believed I could be more than the guy who drifted through his days with grease on his hands and no plan in his head. And slowly, I started to believe it too. She showed me her world, how she sketched rooms on a tablet, turning blank space into something warm and beautiful. I teased her about being fancy, and she called me a caveman. I showed her my world too. One Sunday, when the garage was closed, I brought her there and taught her how to use a wrench without stripping a bolt. She laughed when she got grease on her fingers and I wiped it off for her, my hands shaking a little because touching her still felt dangerous. Everything between us grew like that, quiet but strong. And the closer we got, the harder it got to hide. My mom started noticing. One night I got home after midnight because I had been with Marissa at a bar outside town. Nothing wild, just sitting close, laughing, feeling normal for once. But when I walked in, my mom was waiting in the living room with her arms crossed. "Where have you been, Dylan?" she asked. "You are never out this late." I mumbled something about a friend. I kept my eyes down. She did not buy it. "You have been acting strange," she said. "You are distracted." You are sneaking around like you are hiding something." My chest tightened. I told her I was tired. I told her work was stressful. I told her it was nothing. But the look on her face said she was not fooled. After that, the guilt started creeping in. Not because I was ashamed of Marissa, but because my mom had done everything for me, and I was lying to her every day. Marissa could feel it too. One evening, my mom went to the store to grab medicine. Marissa was over, saying she was just dropping off a recipe. The moment the front door closed, the house felt too quiet. The hum of the fridge filled the kitchen like a warning. Marissa stood by the counter, her hands clasped tight like she was trying to hold herself together. "We cannot keep doing this forever," I said. She looked up at me, eyes soft but tired. "No," she said. "It is not fair to her," I added. "Or to you. Or to me." Marissa stepped closer. "I do not want to stop, Dylan," she said. "Do you?" I shook my head, my throat burning. "No." Her hand touched my arm, gentle and steady. "Then we tell her," she said, "because you are worth the truth." The words hung in the air like thunder in the distance. Tell her. My mom, the woman who loved Marissa like a sister and still treated me like a kid who needed fixing. My stomach turned. "When?" I asked. Marissa took a deep breath. "Soon," she said, "before it gets worse. Before she finds out some other way." I nodded, even though fear flooded my chest. That night, lying in bed, I stared at my ceiling again, just like I did after that midnight photo. Only now the question was different. It was not what happens now. It was how much will it cost when it does. A few days later, Marissa texted me a simple plan. Tuesday, after dinner, we tell her together. I read it and felt my whole body go cold, because I could already see my mom's face. The shock, the anger, the heartbreak. And still, when Tuesday came, I knew I was going to sit in that living room and say the words out loud. Because whatever Marissa and I were, it was already bigger than a secret. And once my mom heard the truth, nothing in our lives would ever go back to normal. Tuesday night felt like walking toward a crash I could see coming but could not stop. The whole day at the garage, my hands moved on their own, while my mind stayed stuck on one moment that had not happened yet. I changed oil, checked brakes, tightened bolts, and kept thinking about my mom's face when I told her. I kept thinking about Marissa's voice when she said, "We need the truth." When I got home, my mom was in a good mood. That was the worst part. She was making dinner, humming to herself, moving around the kitchen like everything was normal. The smell of roasted chicken and buttered corn filled the house. She asked me how work was. I said fine. She told me Marissa was coming over to share a new recipe and maybe stay for coffee after. I nodded like that was normal too. By the time Marissa arrived, my stomach was in knots. I heard her knock, then my mom's cheerful voice as she opened the door. Marissa stepped inside carrying a small container like she always did. She looked polished, but I could tell she was nervous. Her smile was tighter. Her eyes flicked to me for a second, then away. Dinner was a blur. My mom talked about neighbors. Marissa laughed at the right moments. I barely tasted the food. My fork scraped the plate while my heart hammered in my chest. I kept waiting for the right moment, but there was no right moment. Every second felt wrong. After dinner, my mom brought coffee to the living room. She sat in her usual chair. Marissa sat on the couch. I sat across from my mom with my hands clenched on my knees. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to make my skin crawl. Marissa glanced at me and gave a small nod. I took a breath that felt too shallow. "Mom," I said, my voice dry. "There is something we need to tell you." My mom's smile faded, not fully, but enough that I knew she felt it. She set her mug down carefully. "What is it, Dylan?" I looked at Marissa. Her face was pale, but she stayed steady. "It is about me and Marissa," I said. My mouth felt like it was full of sand. "We have been seeing each other." The room went still. My mom stared at me, like she did not hear right. Her eyes shifted to Marissa, then back to me. Her eyebrows pulled together slowly. "Seeing each other how?" I swallowed hard. "Together," I said. "Like that. We are together." My mom's coffee mug hit the table harder than it should have. The liquid sloshed near the rim. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. Her face went pale, then flushed, like anger and hurt were fighting for space. "No," she said, and her voice cracked on the word. "No, that is not funny." Marissa stood too. "It is not a joke," she said softly. My mom turned to her, and I had never seen that look on my mom's face before. It was betrayal, sharp and raw. "You are my friend," my mom said. "You sat in my house. You ate at my table. You asked me about my life. You smiled at me." Marissa's eyes filled with tears. "I know," she said, "and I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but it happened, and it is real." My mom's head shook like she was trying to shake the words out of the air. "Dylan," she said, turning to me now, "you are 25. She is 36. This is insane." I stood up, my legs shaking. "It is not insane," I said. "It is not some game. I chose this." My mom's eyes flashed. "You do not even know what you want in your own life, Dylan. You cannot even commit to school. And now you think you can commit to this." Her words stung because they hit the place I always tried to ignore. But I did not look away. "I know what I want right now," I said. "I want her." My mom's breath hitched. She looked like I slapped her. Marissa reached for my hand, and I let her. Her fingers were cold, but steady. "Mom," Marissa said, her voice shaking. "I love him. I did not plan it. I did not go looking for it. But I cannot lie about it anymore." My mom laughed once, a hard sound that did not match her face. "Love," she repeated. "You are telling me you love my son." Marissa nodded, tears spilling now. "Yes," she whispered. My mom's mouth opened like she wanted to say 100 things, but only one came out. "Get out," she said. I froze. "Mom, get out," she said again louder. "Both of you, get out of my house." My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I took a step toward her, but she held up a hand like she could not even stand me being close. I grabbed my jacket from the chair without thinking. Marissa picked up her bag. We walked to the door in silence, like the air had turned heavy around us. At the doorway, I turned back. My mom was standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, eyes wet, staring at the floor like she could not look at either of us without breaking. "Mom," I said, and my voice sounded small again. "I did not want to hurt you." She did not answer. Marissa touched my arm gently. "Let's go," she whispered. Outside, the cold hit my face like a slap. Streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement. We stood by Marissa's car for a second, both of us breathing like we had just run. "I did not want it to go like that," I said. Marissa's eyes were red, but she did not look away. "Neither did I," she said. "But we are here now." I looked at her. My chest hurt, not just from my mom's anger, but from the truth that my life had split in half in one night. "What now?" I asked. Marissa reached for my hand again, holding it tight. "We figure it out together," she said. I did not go back inside. I could not. I drove to Marissa's place, grabbed a bag from my room when my mom was still in the living room, and left without another word. The silence between me and my mom felt like a wall I could not climb. Marissa's apartment was quiet when we got there. She made tea we did not drink. We sat on her couch, my bag on the floor, both of us staring ahead like we were trying to understand what we just did. I felt empty and full at the same time. I felt guilty and alive. I felt like my life was finally moving, but it was moving through pain. Marissa leaned into me, her head on my shoulder. "We chose this," she whispered. I wrapped my arms around her. "Yeah," I said, "we did." The next few weeks were hard. My mom did not call. I did not go back to the house. Every time I looked at my phone, I expected her name. It never came. The guilt stayed in my stomach like a stone. Marissa and I built a new routine because that was all we could do. We met each day like a decision. Some days it felt easy. like we were finally honest. Other days, it felt like we were walking through a storm with no shelter. But Marissa did not let me fall back into drifting. One night, she sat across from me at her tiny kitchen table and slid a stack of papers toward me. Trade programs, apprenticeships, carpentry classes. She had printed them all out like she believed I would actually pick one. "You are good with your hands," she said. "Not just cars. You fix things. You build things. You can build a life too." No one had ever said that to me like it was a fact. My mom always talked about what I was not doing. Marissa talked about what I could do. So I applied. I enrolled in a carpentry program, and when I told Marissa, she smiled like she had been waiting for that moment. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I knew you had it in you." 4 months after that night, Marissa and I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment near a lake just outside Denver. It was nothing fancy. Creaky floors, a tiny kitchen, windows that let in soft morning light. But it felt like ours. The air smelled like pine trees, and on quiet nights, we could hear the water ripple like it was breathing. We were not a secret anymore, at least not between us. We still kept things quiet from the world, not because we were ashamed, but because we were tired. Tired of opinions, tired of people acting like love needed permission. We made small, ordinary memories that felt bigger than anything I had before. I taught her how to fix a dripping faucet, guiding her hands on the wrench until she laughed when water sprayed everywhere. She taught me how to bake lemon cake, and I covered myself in flour like an idiot, making her laugh until she could not breathe. We walked by the lake in the evenings, hands laced, cold air on our faces, and for the first time, I felt like my days were not repeating, they were building. Still, my mom stayed in my mind like an ache. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "I'm not ready to talk, but I'm glad you're safe." That was all. No forgiveness, no warmth. But it was a crack in the wall. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Marissa sat beside me, watching my face. "Is it her?" she asked. I nodded. Marissa rested her hand on my knee. "She loves you," she said quietly. "She is just hurt. Give her time." I leaned back and let the air out of my lungs. Time felt like the only thing I had left to offer. That night, Marissa and I sat on the hood of her car by the lake, a blanket over our shoulders. Stars spread across the sky like someone spilled light. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I held her hand. "You ever regret it?" I asked. She turned her face toward me, her eyes steady, soft, sure. "Not for a second," she said. I swallowed hard. "Me either." She smiled, and it reached her eyes. Later, lying in bed with the lake murmuring outside the window, Marissa traced slow circles on my arm. "You know what that picture did," she whispered. I turned toward her. "What?" "It woke me up," she said. "Made me stop pretending, too. Made me choose something real." I looked at her, and my chest filled with a feeling I did not have words for. "It changed my life," I said. "Not just because of you. Because it made me want to be someone worth choosing." Marissa kissed me slow and steady, like she was sealing a promise. When I think back to that midnight photo, I do not think about the robe anymore. I think about the moment my life stopped looping. The moment someone saw me and I finally saw myself. It cost me peace. It cost me my mom's trust, at least for a while. But it gave me something I never had before. A direction. A choice, a love that did not feel perfect, but felt real. And every time I walk by that lake with Marissa's hand in mine, I know one thing for sure. That photo did not ruin my life. It changed it. And I have not looked back since.